Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories for the Love of Books. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Shara Goswick, and I'm your host. Today on the podcast, I speak with Kate Boudreaux, who is an author. I was able to meet her recently, but I missed our book club where she was. And it's probably a good thing because I didn't get to hear all the questions that were asked. She was so lovely, so sweet to talk to. And we talked about her debut novel, Backwater. I loved it. It's a beautiful book. The cover's gorgeous, but the story is very sweet. We also grew up in the same general area, not the same town, but the same general area. So I appreciate her writing and the setting of her writing. Our word of the week this week
It's the word of the week.
is ecstatic. Kate tells a story about when she was having her book edited and what she was ecstatic about. You'll have to listen and understand what she was talking about. But there are things that make me ecstatic. Sometimes people may think I get too happy and too excited about silly things. But why wouldn't we want to be that way in this life? There's a lot of hard things going on in the world. So why not choose joy? Why not choose to be happy? And there are a lot of things that make me happy, that make me ecstatic. One of them is when a guest says yes. I get so excited that I get to talk to them. These authors, everybody's amazing, but these authors are like dreams come true getting to talk to them because I am so passionate about reading and about books. And so I get very ecstatic. I get very excited when I get to talk to these authors. But the other thing that makes me so happy is my listeners. I love when people message me and tell me that they're listening or that they sent an episode to someone. I love hearing about people like Marty Gilliam who are listening from Georgia and how much she loves the podcast. That makes my heart so happy. It makes me ecstatic. What makes you ecstatic? If you haven't found yourself laughing lately, if you haven't found yourself smiling lately, stop and spend a minute and think about the things that you have to be happy about. I bet you can list more than you realize. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you are a reader, if you know someone that is, get Backwater and read this book and encourage Kate with it because she did such an incredible job. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. This is the first time I'm using this microphone. And so I just want to make sure I can
Yeah, that's, can
okay.
you hear me good?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I have the air on and we have pets and stuff. So,
Your house is gorgeous.
oh, thank
So
you.
pretty.
I hid the dirty dishes lower in the sink.
Oh yeah. Yes, I totally understand. You can't see anything else in mine. So
Nothing will get me fired up to clean my house worse than the threat of company. So
exactly. Exactly. That's why I
I should
invite
really
people
be
over.
threatened with it. Yes.
Well, I hated to miss the book club the other night. Is that something that you are doing a lot of in promoting this book? Have you been to a lot of book clubs? You have?
To a handful.
Yeah.
Probably not as many as I should. I really should reach out more, but I've had
Yeah.
several reach out to me, and I spoke at one Rotary Club meeting, and I've had different book signings.
Yeah.
My very first one was at Junk Gypsy in Round Top, and that's
Oh,
always the
wow.
most fun place to
I
go.
was going to say that's probably a blast.
It was, they read Backwater and invited me to come, and it was actually on the day that it published, was
Yeah.
my first book signing.
Oh,
We
that's
got there.
exciting.
So they got an early copy, but yeah, it was a whole lot of fun.
I bet. So when did Backwater come out?
In 2022, October
Okay.
24th.
Okay. So it's been longer than I realized
It
it
has, yeah.
was.
It's kept its momentum though, so I'm pretty excited
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. It was so good. And I was excited to read it because I know that you're from Southeast Texas and I'm from Southeast Texas. So I thought, okay, maybe, I loved it. I just loved, first of all, the covers. I don't know who did the graphics, but they're gorgeous. Both of your books covers are
Thank you.
gorgeous.
My publisher is amazing, Gilda Press. It's a small press, but what
Uh-huh.
I love about it is they give authors a lot of input on covers.
That's
They
good.
never want to do something that will just blindside you or that you're not happy
Right.
with. So we discussed, the feel of the cover, and I love, old artwork and vintage things.
Yeah.
And it just, I'm an old soul ever since I was the 7-year-old who could crochet. I was that
Right.
person. So I like more kind of timeless covers, I think. And I think
Yeah.
she did a spot on job of making
Oh,
sure
it's
that
beautiful.
it turned out just like we had hoped.
Yes, and it's a perfect picture of the story. I mean, it's just a perfect setting. I just loved it. When it was written and you wanted to have it published, were you thinking of doing self-publishing at all, or did you just do what you need to do and try to find a publisher?
That is the longest story of my life, so I
Oh
kind of
no.
have to go back to the very beginning. When I didn't try to write anything until I was 30 because
Mhm.
I thought that I didn't like writing. I knew I liked to read, and I
Yeah.
always loved movies, especially classic movies, and just any sort of story I was always super drawn to. But I didn't think I was a writer because I didn't like writing in school. I didn't go to college.
Right.
I was an straight A student, but I didn't enjoy it. And it took me a long time to figure out why. And it was
Yeah.
because I don't like assignments.
Well, there
I
you
don't
go.
want to be told what to write. I want to think of it on my own.
Yeah.
And so it had to be something that really captured my attention. And the
Yeah.
story just kept coming to me, the need to write a story like this or for somebody to write it. And I just thought, what do I have to lose? And
Hmm.
actually, this is going to sound really stupid, but a really famous romance writer, and I won't name her, but she moved to my hometown, and I didn't know her.
Oh wow.
One of my good friends lived across the street, so it gave me a reason to like drive by her house one day.
Sure.
And something in my brain clicked that, oh, writers are just people. They're just
Yeah.
people, and anybody can try to do this. So
Yeah.
the first draft of Backwater, I wrote it just for my family. I wasn't really thinking anybody else would see it, not really.
Yeah.
And then I got a professional editor to edit it because
Hmm.
I knew that it needed some help.
Right.
And then I thought, well, maybe I should try to get it published. And I didn't even know where to start. So self-publishing just seemed super scary to
Yeah.
me because I didn't know anything. And I thought,
Right.
I need a team, I need a village. So I started trying to get a literary agent.
Hmm.
I got one. He was the number one seller in the United States. I won't name him. It
Wow.
was it was not a good experience.
Oh no.
It was kind of like, you hear of like a puppy mill. It was a writer
Ah,
mill. And he
yeah.
sold a lot, but if you didn't sell instantly, like first couple of days, he forgot
Yeah.
you existed,
Oh gosh.
and it was awful. So I don't know why. It was like kind of like an abusive marriage. Like you think, why did I stay so long? I stayed with him for about a year and I broke up with him and I got a different agent who was nice, and
Yeah.
it was fine. It just wasn't exactly the right fit. We were together about a year. Got a third agent.
Oh my
By
goodness.
this time, my number of rejections is in the hundreds. Just,
Yeah.
and it was never from editors. They would always send me out on submission and they would have really nice things to say, but they
Yeah.
would either want me to change it to make it real hallmarky, like
Yeah.
stereotype of what a New Yorker thought my
Right.
book should be, which is so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Or they would just say really nice things, but not give a reason why they couldn't do it. But
Right.
it was just not the right time or place. And then, really, it was, I think I stood in my own way for 7 years is how long it took to get
Wow.
it published. It was
Wow.
forever. Um, but I think I kept thinking if I do X, Y, and Z, if I portray myself as this, and this, everything that they want, if I keep my mouth shut about certain topics, if I, remain extremely neutral and, I am a Christian, but I don't write Christian fiction, but
Right.
big publishers really frown on that.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad because they say, oh, they're very, very fair and whatever. No, they're not.
Yeah.
And they will take one look at a girl from rural Texas like me and make assumptions on my character. And looking back, it
Yeah.
was stupid. I shouldn't have even cared, but I was younger and I just
You
thought
learned a lot.
I learned a lot about who I am and what
Right,
I'm willing to put up
right.
with. And I remember I was driving in my car and I just was talking to God and I said, you know, I've done everything I can do. I have pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and I'm tired. And now I'll do whatever you want me to do. If it's self publishing, even though in my head I said I would never do that, you know,
Right.
if it's that, I'll do that. If whatever you want. About 10 or 15 minutes later, I got the call from the
Wow.
publisher that I have now. And she wasn't even a publisher at that point. She had worked in the industry for years and years. And I already had a relationship with her. I knew her and I trusted her. And out of the blue, she said, hey, I'm opening a publishing company and I want backwater. And I'm
Wow.
like, sold, done.
Yes.
So that was the beginning of a really great relationship. And so it worked out just like it was supposed to, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the way I thought it was
Right.
gonna
The
happen.
route to get there was not what you were expecting.
And that's how life is, you know.
Exactly. But
Mhm.
people need to hear that. People who want to write, people who are in that process, they need to hear it's not all perfect cookie cutter, everything just falls into place. I mean, not that
No.
anybody wants to have to go through that, but people need to hear that's just kind of how it is sometimes.
It definitely is. And I think people have, if you start looking at statistics of how many writers land an agent and actually get published by a big publisher,
Right.
it's I believe 1% of people who
Wow.
try to get an agent, and 1% of that 1% get
Yeah.
published. It's insane.
Wow. That is
You know,
insane.
agents get some of them get hundreds of query letters a day, you know, the big
Gosh.
ones. It
Yeah.
you know, it's very, very competitive. So I do see why people self-publish. And
Right.
at this point, I know more about myself. And like, if something happened to my publisher, I would never want to work with anybody else as long as she's in business. But if
Sure.
something did happen, I would feel comfortable self-publishing now that
Yeah.
I'm more confident in myself and have kind of
Yes.
seen.
Yes.
It's just a very scary, you know, thing. And
It
people
is.
have really bold opinions on both sides. You know, there's the traditional side, they kind of look down on self-published, like, oh, that's not really up to snuff. And then the self-published people sometimes look down on the traditional people because they're like, just do it or whatever. And I can see both sides of the
Yeah.
coin.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of traditional authors that, you know, need to be braver maybe and take some chances in self-publishing. And
Right.
there's a lot of self-published books out there that really need to hire an editor. You know,
Yeah. Yes.
anybody besides an author.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it takes a lot of people to make a book
it does.
good. Usually
Yeah.
it takes a village, and there's zero first drafts that I'm ever going to write, or even fourth or fifth or 10th drafts that are going to be good enough without lots of people's eyeballs on it.
Right.
Because
That's
you're not
another
going to see
thing.
your flaws. You're not.
Right. That's another thing people need to hear. The last author I spoke with talked about that. And he said, I said, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to write? And he said, just start. And he said, and just expect your first draft to be awful. Just
Yeah.
expect it. And so that people need to hear that too. I think sitting down to write, you think it needs to be perfect the first time, or you think it should be because you see all these books and surely everybody's was perfect the first time they wrote it. And I heard
No.
Judy Bloom say one time, she said, I am not a great writer, I'm a great rewriter. And I thought, if somebody that successful can admit that, they all have to do it, they all have to rewrite, that's
I believe,
encouraging.
was it Hemingway that said writing is rewriting? And
Yeah, I mean, it is.
that
It
is what it is. You'll
is.
spend way more
Yeah.
time. That first draft is just kind of like vomit on the page.
Right. Right.
And then you have to clean it up and try to make it look
Yeah.
pretty. Um, yeah, I think I knew I had gone a long time just never I had never met another writer. I had never taken a writing class. And so
Hmm.
I just wrote the whole first draft of that book just blindly. And
That's
I didn't even
awesome.
know what like the hero's journey was. It was hilarious whenever I read the writer's journey book that talks about the hero's journey, and there's all kinds of different formulas, but they always usually go back to that. I remember it was like light bulbs came on. I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
wow.
it's a character arc, you know? And, and every new little thing that is stupid
Yeah.
that I should have already known, I just didn't. Um, Luckily my book lined up with the hero's journey. I was like, oh
Yes.
well, thank goodness, because that would have been rough to try to redo that. But I think I knew I was going to be a writer, that I would never quit. Whenever my super sucky first draft, my editor got it, that I had hired an editor, and I waited like 6 months for her to be available. And when she finally was, whenever she sent it back, it looked like she had bled on it and there were notes out to the side. And instead of feeling, like put down or
Right.
depressed about it, I was ecstatic. I was like, I've been waiting my whole life to see.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like when you know something is wrong, but you can't,
Sure.
put your finger on what it is. And then somebody who actually knows some stuff comes along and says, this is wrong and this is why. And you're
Right.
like, oh, praise the Lord.
Yes. Thank you
They
for
knew.
telling me.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for telling me. And it was exciting. Like that was so much fun to rip it to shreds. And,
Right.
and now when I send stuff, it's not, there's a few notes here and there, but you learn with
Right.
everything
Yeah.
you write and every time you rewrite it. Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, I'm glad. I want you to talk a lot. So, did you, when you sat down and decided to start writing, did you plan on doing Southern fiction? Like, was that, or did it just kind of happen to come out that way?
No, I mean, I never planned like to be an author. I just
Hmm.
planned to write the story because I mostly 99% of the book is true in some way or another.
Yeah.
Not not the story itself, but the people, the way they are. Each
Hmm.
character may be one person I've known or a collection of 10 different people, but all of the hunting and fishing stories have either
Hmm.
happened to me, happened to
Yeah.
my husband's family, my family, and a lot of it was little tidbits because my family, nobody really likes to read, and nobody is a writer for sure, but they're all oral storytellers. Like if we get
Right.
together, there's going to be story after story after story, whether
Yes.
it's funny or sad or, and they've always collected all these. And I thought, I need to write these down because they could be lost in a
Yeah.
generation or two,
Sure.
and it was just sentimental to me. And, but then once it was on the page, I realized that it's bigger than just me and it's bigger than just my family. It
Right.
really, I think, speaks to people who live in rural areas all over the world. I've had someone
Absolutely.
from Germany, write me and be like, how do you know my aunt? Like, this is my
Wow.
aunt exactly. I'm like, pretty sure no, but
That's so funny.
it's universal.
Yeah, it is. I think I loved the story. It was so sweet. But I think I loved, and what I kind of resonated with was just the simple life, just the
Mhm.
simple life of, I don't want to tell the whole story. People need to read it. But it wasn't about money, and it was about family. It was about taking care of each other. And it's about, you know what I mean? I appreciated that. And it's such a good story. I mean, it really is. How long after you did Backwater did you do Driftwood Diary?
So I wrote Driftwood. It took me, a year to write the first draft of Backwater and then 6 more
Hmm.
to get it published. And that was a lot of rewrites.
Yeah.
I sat down, I studied cults for Driftwood. I mean, I sound like a schizophrenic writer. I get really bored. And so I'm not a person to do a series. Once I'm done with this,
Right.
I'm so sick of them. I
Right.
just don't want to see them again. And so then my brain will go to my latest obsession. And at the moment it was cults. And I just got to thinking, there's a common thread, which I studied them for 3 years, every one that I could
Wow.
ever get my hands on.
Yeah.
And then I just made my own. So by the time I sat down to write it, I had the story in my head really clearly, and it only
Hmm.
took 3 months. And we barely even had to edit it, which is crazy. I'll probably
Wow.
never do that again in my life. But I was just prepared with, I had
Yeah.
it, in my head what it would be. So that one
That's
went a lot
amazing.
faster. No, my new one is not, not so fast. I've been working on it for years. Hopefully I'll be done. I'm on chapter 13. Y'all pray for me that I can. It's set in the 20s, so there's a lot of history and research involved. I don't want to get that
Yeah.
wrong. So
Right. Right.
I need
So
a
what's
historian
been,
to read it.
you need
Definitely.
what?
I'll need a historian to read it. Somebody
Oh,
who's
yeah.
really good with the 20s.
Yeah. That's nice. Do you have do you let other people read stuff that you're writing, or do you just send it to your editor as you're doing
Very,
it?
very few
Very
now.
few. Yeah.
I used to, used to,
Yeah.
like, anybody, you're like your mail lady, anybody, you're like,
Right.
please
Please read
tell me
this.
what you think. I really, it's a wonder that I have any friends left, because during that span of time, I made so many people read it. It's
Oh gosh,
embarrassing because, I mean,
that's
you're
so
just
funny.
desperate for
Yes.
feedback. You're like, anybody, tell
Yes.
me anything about this. And now I have a couple of other writers that work with the same publisher that I do, that I
Mm-hmm.
trust,
Yeah,
to give me feedback, and a couple of other close friends that I know
it's
won't
good.
just tell me what I want to hear, because
Right.
that comes
That
later,
doesn't help.
that
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So, and my mama, she's always
Of
my
course.
first reader, and she'll
Yeah.
definitely tell me what she thinks. She's funny. She's I I love how she raised me, because she never told me I was good at something I wasn't good at.
Right.
And that'll save you a lot of
That's
embarrassment
good. Sure.
as an adult.
Sure.
In my first draft of Backwater, oh, so bad. It was so, so bad. Looking back, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed her eyeballs had to suffer through it. And I remember she was sitting on my porch swing, and she read a little bit of it, and she said, um, baby, I just don't think so.
That was as sweet
It's
as she
like,
could say it.
oh, I'm like, I'll get better. I'll learn to do it better. And then I did, she never was like, oh, this is all of it's fabulous.
Yeah,
Now
that's so funny.
she says that, but she was honest,
Yeah,
and it was bad. It was me
that
telling
is
that
funny.
story to
But you
myself.
did it, but you did it. I mean, that's the thing. Even though, it wasn't perfect the first time, you still did it, and you didn't give up on it, which is it's just impressive to me. I read a lot. And so I so appreciate authors who write incredible books because
Well,
I
thank
read them.
you.
I love them. I
Thank
really
you.
do. If you had time to read, like I know you're busy with writing and doing in life is, busy. Do you have
Yeah,
time to read anymore?
no,
No.
it has to be something really, really good. Like, I made time
Yeah.
to read Where the Crawdads Sing, and
Hmm.
that was excellent.
Yeah.
And I read the books that, from my publisher, my fellow authors, I always make
Yeah.
time to read those, and they're excellent.
Yeah.
But very few. I read Go as a River. I think it's on my coffee table over there the other day, and it was really, really good. And I'm reading Sean Diedrich's Will the Circle
Oh,
Be
I wanted to
Unbroken?
read that. Is it good?
Yeah, I've started it. Is really good.
Yeah. I
Yes.
wanted to get that one.
He's an excellent writer. I have a few things of his on audiobook, but I
Yeah.
wanted to get that one in hardcover. He actually gave me a blurb for
I
Backwater, which
saw
was so
that.
sweet.
What an honor.
And we are going, he'll be in Lufkin on Thursday night
Oh,
for a
really?
concert, and we're gonna go and see him.
Oh,
I haven't
that's
got to meet him
neat.
and Jamie in person yet, so that should be really fun.
That is awesome. Very exciting. So you're working on another book. Are you just going to keep going? Just keep going till you can't go anymore?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've gotten kind of into screenwriting too with
Oh,
Backwater.
wow.
We sold the film rights to it.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. How was that? How did that feel?
It really, I mean, just unreal. Like, just the whole thing has
Yeah,
been super amazing. I love my producer and director, and there's a lot of people attached, a lot of people helping behind the scenes. We have some
sure.
friends from Nashville that are writing original music for it.
Wow.
Been a lot of help in that department. I actually got to hear a little of the theme song
Oh
for
my
it, and it
goodness.
was so surreal. Like, it made me cry, and it
Yeah.
was so, so amazing. And I can't wait to see what happens with everything. So hopefully
That is so exciting.
like, I don't know when it will start filming. We're
Right.
not quite there yet to know timelines, but whenever it does, it will be filmed here,
Yeah.
in East Texas, as far as I know.
That's
So it'll
awesome.
look right, and we hope to get
Yeah.
a lot of local people like as extras and things, because
Sure.
you can just tell if it's wrong,
Yes.
and you're like,
Yes.
oh, these people are not,
Are you going to be in it?
I am a
Yeah.
tiny little one little tiny scene near the end. I'll have a little
Yeah.
cameo in there. I won't say what,
Good.
but
Okay.
it's going to be a fun scene. I've kind of waited my whole life to play this
That's
little funny part, so
awesome.
it it should be cute.
That is so cool. I'm excited for you. I heard that and I'm like, how impressive. Like I would feel so honored
Well,
for that
it
to be
really
full.
is just a God thing too. On that, years before I even knew anybody to even pitch a screenplay to.
Mhm.
I just got a strong feeling that I think it was before the book was even published. Yeah, it had to be. I got a strong feeling that I need to learn how to write screenplays and that I should
Wow.
turn it into a screenplay. So I downloaded Final Draft, which is this big program that,
Yeah.
professionals use. I thought if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it right. And
Right.
so I read a few screenplays and I just wrote it the best way I knew how. And um I've actually sold the film rights twice. So the first company that bought them, super nice, but they were very busy. And
Oh,
they assigned another screenwriter to help go over it with me. And he
right.
was a real big help on helping me to kind of see what could be better.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. But something in my gut just told me to ask to buy my rights back,
Oh, wow.
because after some time went by, and that was the right move, and the perfect person that had time to really dedicate to it came
Sure.
along, and it was just ready to pitch by that point.
Wow.
I felt it was nice because I don't think if I wouldn't have been prepared, a lot of production companies, they may say, oh yeah, let me read your book, but they're just like not going to take the time. They want to read a short little screenplay. They
Yeah. Right.
so I would love to get more into that. I would love to eventually start working with other authors to help
Yeah.
them, if they were interested in turning their novel into a screenplay. 'Cause
Yeah.
I realize I really enjoy that. It's faster paced and it's just a
Right.
completely different way to look at the story.
That's very cool. Well, I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see it. What is your favorite thing about this journey that you've been on? I know there were hard parts and probably
Yeah.
lots of tears along the way, but what is your favorite thing about what you're getting to do?
Oh, probably that our part of the world is kind of being seen.
Mhm.
There's just little things like my whole family are hog hunters. We've
Yeah.
always been, that's a really big thing.
Hmm.
And I've never seen that in books or on
Right.
TV. And they a lot of time there's a lot of Americans that are hunters and
Yes.
fishermen. But if you notice, if if hunting and fishing is on the television screen or in a book that's produced by the big publishers, I dare you to try to find one that doesn't try to cast that in a negative light as if
Right.
for being mean. I'm like, what's mean is chicken houses, people that are
Right.
raising, you know, but they're
Exactly.
eating chicken on their salad with no problem,
Right.
these people, but they would never hunt a deer. That is
Yeah.
just extremely hypocritical to me.
Right.
And it's not real life.
Yeah.
But it's a very small faction that are making those calls. But start noticing anything to do with
Yeah.
nature or hunting or anything is always cast them as like, the person who killed Bambi's mom.
Right.
And okay.
Well, my husband grew up hunting and he doesn't get to go as often as he would like, but he's got some stories.
I can
You know,
imagine.
his dad, took him hunting. They fish all the time. We have a stock pond actually on our property, which is not, fishing for food, but he loves it. He loves being outdoors and getting to do those things.
Right.
And I don't know, I didn't grow up with that, but I don't know a life different than that. My son-in-law does it. It's normal to me. It's not anything
Well,
unusual.
and it is normal if you go back to any tribal community from the
Mhm.
beginning of time, hunted. they didn't
Right.
waste things like we
Right.
do now. And I don't believe
Right.
in that. If you're going to go hunt it and kill it, you need to eat it. And if you're not willing to eat
Exactly.
it, you need to leave it alone. You
Right.
know? So I don't like stuff like that. And I wouldn't ever want anything to be hurt just for the sake of hurting it.
Right.
We really love and care about animals.
Yeah.
But, I don't worship animals either.
Right.
I think
Right.
they're put here just like plants or anything else that God
Sure.
put here for either companionship, safety, food.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's a way to do both. There's a way to be a conservationist and good stewards of the land
Mhm.
without just saying, oh, any sort of hunting or whatever is mean.
Right.
Sometimes you have to, thin the herd so the population won't take over something else.
Right.
That's not talked about enough. Sorry, I could get on a soapbox about just because when my whole life, I didn't really notice it. But then once I started getting rejections, and you can just feel
Right.
what people would like to say, but they're actually not going to. And a lot of
Yeah.
it was that. And
Yeah.
I just thought, wow, what a slippery slope we are on.
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
'Cause if some people had it their way, that would probably be illegal. But then who controls it? The government. I
Right.
just don't believe in giving the government that much control over my
Right.
life or anybody's life. They should just
Absolutely.
get out of the way.
I agree 100%. Well, I'm so
Anyway.
thankful to have been introduced to your book, and I'm glad I got to meet you and get my book signed. I don't know if you heard me say that the other night, but I have, a handful of copies of books that are signed that do not leave my house. Like I don't let people borrow them because they're special, and I don't want anybody to mess them up. I'm very glad I got to meet you, and I'm excited for you. I hope you get to continue to travel and meet people, and I'm
Well,
very
thank you. I
thankful.
appreciate you inviting me. It was
Sure.
really nice to talk to you, and I'll definitely tell everybody about your podcast too.
Well, thank you.
Before I go, and you may
Yes.
have to cut this back in, um, then a lot of people ask me, what is the number one thing, we can do to help an author? Leave a review on
Yes.
Amazon.
Yes.
Leave a review anywhere you can, but those Amazon reviews, I mean, they're
They
like gold.
matter.
They really matter.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. You feel like you beg for them constantly, and I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I read your book and it was amazing. I'm like, please leave a review to tell,
Right.
because it boosts you higher in the algorithm.
Yes.
And so many people shop on Amazon. I mean, it's
Yes.
great. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty
Yeah.
of going into a bigger bookstore, but I'm like, but it's on sale on Amazon. So I
Right.
get it there, it's a hard
Yeah.
economy. People do what they have to do.
Right. I know. I know.
Um, yes, please leave a review for me and for any of your favorite authors. We see
Sure.
every single one. We stalk them harder than we've ever stalked anything in our
Yeah.
lives. And we remember whenever you've left something, and it
Yes.
really means something to us.
It does. It's a big deal. So, and I will have your website on whenever I post this. I'll have it
Okay,
so people know where to find you and where to find your book and stuff. So, all
perfect.
righty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Okay. Bye
Bye.
bye.